Underwriting deals is such a major pain point for people. Most don't want to do it, and the people that are good at it are few and far between. That is why after 6 years of being in the industry and buying over 1,200 apartments, using my best-selling multifamily deal analyzer, I created Real Estate Lab, a full suite acquisition software for multifamily investors. We have built a product that helps investors automate their acquisitions and close more deals, all in a cloud-based platform. You can go to realestatelab.com and sign up today using the promo code TAG2 for 10% off your first 12 months. This is David Tupin. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to The Apartment Gurus, where twice a week, host Tate Siemer brings you deep dive interviews with the wisest gurus in the apartment investing industry. These experts are sure to create game-changing value and inspiration designed to catapult your business to the next level. Be sure to reach out to Tate at www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. And now, here is Tate Siemer and the Apartment Gurus.
Welcome, everybody, back. Another episode of The Apartment Gurus coming at you right now. And this is going to be an awesome episode for so many of you listeners. We, over the past, 5-10 episodes, we've had quite a few, people that are just killing it in the apartment space. High level success stories of people that have done a lot of business and are doing a lot of business. And a lot of those folks are young and they're in their 20s and or so, and they're just, like I said, they're just crushing it. And those are great conversations to have because we get to learn from these folks that have gone before us and left the proverbial breadcrumbs behind, and we get to kind of look into their playbook and look at how they've gotten to where they are. And this episode is going to be quite different than those in that we have really an aspiring multifamily investor who's already in the space in that he's in the multifamily construction world. But Michael is working to bust into his first big deal. And I know that's where so many of you are and where I was 2 years ago. And Michael Blanc, shout out to him. He talks so much about the law of the first deal, right? And basically what that means is that the first deal is like the very most important deal probably you'll ever do because it's the deal that puts you on the map. And it's how you bust into the space. And things start to get easier and more in the flow once you get that first deal done. You get brokers notice you. They see that you've transacted and are gonna seek you out for other deals. Same with lenders. It's like it's the beginning of your track record, and that's so key. It's the hardest deal you're ever going to do because you don't have that track record yet. And you don't have that level of experience behind you to really know what it's going to take. So you're doing all these things largely for the first time in a lot of cases, as far as getting the deal and then getting the deal to the finish line. This is going to be an awesome little conversation with my friend Michael Gentile, who's here around, getting him to where he wants to get to right now. And it's going to be kind of a little mini mastermind format in a way, in the sense that I'm not that far ahead of Michael. Like my team, we own 8 properties, about $50 million in assets under management. We didn't have any of that 2 years ago, 2020. So for me, this progression is pretty fresh in my memory. And I'm hoping to add a lot of value to Michael specifically here, but also to you guys, indirectly through this conversation. So first of all, I just want to introduce our guest, Michael Gentile. He's in construction management with is it T-Rock Construction? That's what it's called, Michael?
T-Rock Contracting.
T-Rock Contracting. Yep. But he's done a lot of interesting stuff in addition to, multi-million-dollar renovation projects. He's aided on due diligence, which is key, budget forecasting, which is key. So Michael, you've already got a pretty high level perspective on so much of this game, right? You're not going in totally green, but you've really got this. When you're doing due diligence and you're working with buyers and to get deals done, you're learning through that process, and you're in kind of by osmosis, but also by direct experience. So, but he was born and raised in New York and moved to Dallas in 2014 for some new opportunities. He worked previously in a family landscaping construction business, and was in technology sales, and then in construction sales with a multifamily GC. And then he started his own, essentially construction management company in 2019. So that's a great progression, especially your experience with the first multifamily GC that you worked for. Mm-hmm. And it kind of follows my model of working in the industry, getting paid, and learning the industry through that job. So first of all, Michael, I'm really stoked to have you on the show, and really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast, and I'm hoping to provide some value to the listeners. And I'm also excited to talk with you and just get some more information about the deal side of things. So, like you mentioned, a lot of what my background has been in the construction side, and that's where I've thrived. But the reality is, the thing that I had to learn, which I haven't known, is the deal structuring, like how it happens. And so for me, a lot of that has just been through gleaming off of guys like yourself, another gentleman that actually I met at a mastermind. So, reinvesting in the area that you're not confident in, and just really leaning on people that you connect with, and that you guys have a similar background or similar strategies for business and thought process for business, but that are further ahead of you down the road. Yep. And so I've done that quite a bit with different mastermind groups and investing in those areas to meet the right people to gain the understanding of, like, hey, why is this a good deal, or why is it not a good deal, and things of that nature. But thank you for having me, Tate. I'm excited to talk with you. Yeah, this is going to be great. So let's talk a little bit about, I shared with the listeners about your background, but if you would just kind of add a little more color to that, as far as talking about your experience in real estate, your experience with the construction management side of things, and kind of how that's gotten you to where you are today, in terms of your thinking and your strategy and your goals, like what you're up to. Yeah. So I guess the first part of it, born and raised in New York, grew up there, obviously came from an entrepreneurial family, and went to college for a little while. It wasn't for me, and I pretty much knew immediately that I wanted to either own my own business or go down that route in some way, shape, or form. And so worked for my father for 18, 19, probably about 6-7 years. Learned a tremendous amount there, especially the work ethic side, because I was not on the sales side. I was just, I was a guy actually physically doing the work. And then I transitioned, and right around the time that I transitioned out and moved to Texas, was when I really I got out of it. I started to really develop my sales skills with technology sales. And then I kind of bridged the two together of sales and construction and my background. And I really flourished with the other multifamily GC that I previously worked for. But there were certain things that they did there that I saw could be done better or differently. And I had a lot of ideas, but not a lot of those ideas were kind of taken into consideration. And so it was one of those things where I always thought how it would go, or thought how it would be. And 2019, I decided to step away from them and met my now business partner, Aaron Sadler. And it was honestly it was a really organic match. He and I are, probably 20 years apart in age. But in terms of the way we think, the way we want to do business, the way that we treat our subcontractors, the way we want to treat clients was very much the same. And a lot of what we started was from a book called The Go-Giver. So that's the foundation of our business. Is just, a phenomenal book. See, that's why our core values are actually on the wall here at our office.
Actually, let's stop there. What are your core values? You mind reading those?
Yeah, no problem. So the first one is the law of value. So it's adding more value than we receive in compensation. The second one's the law of compensation, or the value of compensation, and it's all around servanthood. So it's how many people and how well you serve them is going to determine how well you're compensated. The third one is the law of influence, and if you genuinely have somebody else's best interest at heart, then you'll be able to influence them. And if you're not even just having it at heart, but if you're really figuring out like, hey, how can I really impact Tate? How can I impact his listeners? And if you have that thought process in mind, then it's much easier to work with somebody because they know that there's no ulterior motives. The fourth one is authenticity. I preach this in my office quite a bit. When we hire people, I hire people for who they are, right? Obviously, we're always looking for right matches, but I firmly believe that who you are is important. And I believe that you can bring so much value to our business. I think it's the reason why we've grown partly at the rate that we have is because we find good people and we don't try and turn them into a Mike Gentile or an Aaron Sadler, right? Yeah. And then the fifth one is, it's an odd one from a core value perspective, but it's the law of receptivity. You can't continue to give and give and give and be of value and service and not expect that you're going to be on the receiving end of that. And it's been a blessing. Honestly, it has. The last 3 years has been, I guess, a confirmation of the principles that I thought in the beginning, that the market wanted those principles and the market valued those principles. So it's been it's pretty awesome.
That's powerful stuff. And like, listeners, develop your core values. And, I would personally recommend that they be part of your vivid vision that you write. And we've written a vivid vision for Greenlight Equity Group, my company. And we did it under the guidance of the book Vivid Vision by Cameron HEROLD, HEROLD, which is really a guidebook into developing your vivid vision. And your vivid vision is a 3-year vision of what you're creating. So the way that you write your vivid vision is you write it from the perspective of 3 years in the future. What does your company look like now? What kind of deals are you doing? What kind of goals do you have? How, things like how much you have in assets under management, how many doors, what your team looks like, what your culture's like, what your core values are. It really takes the place of like your mission statement, your vision statement. So, we've talked about this before, the vivid vision. I'm happy to share with you guys our vivid vision. If you want to reach out to me at investwithgreenlight.com, you can reach me there. And I'll send you our vivid vision. It's beautiful. Our graphic designer put it together after I wrote it. And hopefully it's kind of a template for you and an inspiration for you to do your own. But knowing, back to core values, knowing yourself is so key in business and the entrepreneurial space. Knowing what you're good at, what your superpowers are, what your strengths are, what you're not good at, what your limitations are, and knowing what you're about, like why you do what you do, right? And your core values are a reflection of that, and they're a reflection of like who you are and how you show up as a person and as a company. So it's so cool to me, Michael, that you're where you are in your progression, and you've already defined for yourself your core values, like what you're about, who you are, and those are powerful values that you read. I love them. So just congratulations on taking that step. That's a big one.
Thank you. And honestly, it really is a testament. When we started, when it was just myself and Aaron, I think that by before ever having an employee here, and it was just him and I, and us agreeing that's direction of what we want to do. It's much, number one, it's a ton easier on the hiring process, because it allows you to understand who's the right fit for your organization and who's not.
Yeah.
And then also it really gives you a powerful thing of what to say no to. I know a lot of people, it's all about, hey, the deals you say yes to, but even in construction, it's about, hey, what do you say no to?
Right.
And there's been a lot of times where we've walked away from projects or clients that weren't a fit. We joke about in the office, if I had less scruples, we would get more business, right? If I was the GC that would, take somebody to a strip club, we'd get more business. And it doesn't go with our core values, right? It's not who we are. It's not it's not my personality. And so for me, it's if I'm going to lose business because that's how that client wants to be entertained, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And an example from the life of Greenlight and our one of our core values is that we work with people that we love to work with. And that's in terms of our service providers, our property managers, our lenders, our brokers. And, and what we found is that we're better when we're working with people that we like to work with. And we're very disempowered in a lot of ways when we're not. And one way that the rubber hit the road on this for us last month was we had a deal we were closing, and we had an equity piece that we needed to bridge. And so we were talking to basically a few larger check writers, like sources of equity to do it. And we got on, we were referred to and got on calls with this guy who could do the deal. He made us an offer, but he was abrasive as heck at all points in the conversations with everyone. Our lender, and he was condescending. It was like he was really irritated precondition wise. Like he kind of came into the conversation that way. And it just, we had multiple conversations with him. We needed this piece badly to get the deal done. And eventually, one of my partners, Chelsea, came to me and she's like, we can't work with this guy. It goes against our core values to work with this guy, number one. But number two, we're going to be miserable if we do, because we'll be working with him for a while. And so we, without another option in hand, we told him that we weren't going with him. And I wrote him an email and told him exactly why. And to me, I did that in the name of being helpful. I wasn't rude. But I was pretty direct and just shared with them why we weren't going to work with them. And then sure enough, I think the same day, another option showed up, and which is kind of how the universe works. I think when you stick with what's important to you and kind of go for your highest and best, I think things just seem to happen, from that, when you act boldly, fortune favors the bold, so to speak. And so
100%.
Yeah. 100%. So, that to me is a powerful example of having a core value, number one, number two, following your core value, and number three, having things really work out well in the long run by doing so. So, start there, guys. Listeners, start with defining your core values. Maybe you don't do the whole vivid vision thing right now, but really define who you are, create who you are, and create it from a space of your highest and best purposes, visions, mission, whatever that is for you. Come from that space of man, if life's going exactly the way I want it to, and I'm creating things exactly the way I want it to, and our company is kind of looks the way that we want it to look, and is as powerful as we want it to be. What does life look like at that point? And what are the important values that you have at that point? And how did you get there? Right. So yeah, man, good job on that stuff.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, all right. So you've done a fair amount in the way of construction management, in terms of, you worked for a GC. which is great, a great way to do this. And I've talked about this on the show before. Like, one really powerful way of getting into this business is to work in this business for someone else and learn the business that way. And, you get paid, ideally anyway, and you're, so you're making some money, but more importantly, you're cutting your teeth, right? You're getting a track record of experience that's going to make you better when it's time to go out on your own. So it sounds like, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you kind of always knew that you'd do your own thing in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, it just, my wife always jokes that like, there's just no way I could have worked for somebody else for indefinitely. Whether that's true or not, I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, I'm not gonna have to figure that one out. But the reality is that at a young age, I think the first time I ever said it was like, I was probably like in third or fourth grade, where I was walking with a friend, and I don't know how the conversation came up. They're like, "Hey, what are you going to do, with the rest of your life?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to." Actually, back in the day, I used to say I'm going to become a police officer, and then I'm going to run my father's company on the side. And actually, that was the trajectory that I thought I was going to take when I was 18, 19 years old, taking criminal justice courses in college. I said it in third grade. That's what I was going to do, is work during the week, and then my days off, I was going to run my father's company. And obviously it took a different turn, but the reality is, in my mind, I always thought that I was going to run my own company someday. Yeah. And I actually always had a vision for myself as some sort of business owner.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I didn't get hung up on, though, and this is something that I've talked to a lot of young aspiring entrepreneurs, and I didn't mind resetting. So what I mean by that is I left my father's company, and I was probably 24 years old. I had a ton of experience. I wasn't just like a guy cutting grass for him. I was basically running an entire crew. I was, talking with customers. So I had a ton of experience. But when people saw my resume when I was leaving my father's company, and it was like, business manager or something like that, or I forget what my title was at the time. Very few people, because the last name matched with the last name on the business, very few people took me seriously. Oh, wow. And so my first job leaving my father's company was actually door-to-door sales. I didn't mind resetting and taking no salary. And I was perfectly fine with cutting my teeth for just commission. Yeah. And then from there, I crushed it. I became like second in the nation with 10,000 offices, selling Verizon door-to-door, business to business. And then from there, I jumped into another tech sale, and then another one. And this was all within like a 2-year period of time, to where I realized, hey, I can hang here. But I think, even when I left, I went back into construction sales. I went from 6 figures to literally a 50% pay cut, with the promise of, commissions. Yep. And so for me, if I want to be in a space, I never really cared about the short-term benefit. I've always had this more long-term, like, hey, I'll bet on myself that I can make up whatever I was going to make in that $50,000. I'll make that up and then some in commissions. Yeah. You tell me the structure, and I can weave in my mind how that structure is going to come together to benefit me where I'm at 150 or 200. So I think that's somewhere where a lot of people don't want to take that risk of, they're very risk averse of restarting or changing careers. And it's like, hey, if you really feel like that's where you're meant to be, and that's the space that you're meant to be in, and that's the job that gets you there. And yeah, it's less like me and my wife, we I'm very blessed in that regard, where, I would go to her and I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. And she would support me and go, I believe in you. If you're going to do it, then go ahead and do it. And there was time and time again in our relationship and now our marriage where, she would just say, hey, go for it. You're going to crush it. And so, having supporting people around you is important. And then don't be afraid to take less money if it's in the space that you want to be in.
Absolutely. That's so well said. It's all about having the long vision, right? The long game vision on this. And if you know where you're headed in the long run, you can take these steps in the short run that are positive, proactive, forward moving steps. Maybe they're not the income that you really want, or maybe even need, but it's part of the progression, right? And like, to your point about some people get anxious or nervous about taking a step like that, in basically putting yourself in a commission-based environment. Those people are more of the employee mentality than the owner mentality. And to me, like, you can certainly grow out of, if you're intentional, you can grow out of the employee mentality and into the owner mentality. But also, I just want to say that there's kind of a natural predisposition to entrepreneurship, which is essentially business ownership. You own your own business and run your own business. And some of us are just wired that way, where, we got to do it this way. Like, we can't work for someone else because we know what we're about, and we know that we're more powerful when we're calling the shots, and when we're managing the progression of our business, and essentially, as managing partner, CEO, president, whatever you want to call it, that's really the position that you fit best into. That's where your superpower shine, so to speak. And Michael, you're clearly that way. You knew in third grade that you were going to run your own business, own your own business. And you come from an entrepreneurial family, which I don't. I didn't tap into my entrepreneurial side till I was about 30. I was very much in the employee mentality, and I was miserable. Like, I hadn't tapped into my entrepreneurial drive. And so I didn't have that forward vision that was getting me anywhere that would fit me better. So I was in this space of like, how do I climb the corporate ladder, even though it doesn't fit? It was like pounding a square peg into a round hole. And, life happened, and I made some choices. I moved from Cincinnati to Utah to ski and have fun. And I immediately got into a job working for somebody else who happens to be my business partner now. But he basically helped me develop my entrepreneurial side, and I became an owner with him. And then I branched off on my own in photography, and that's when I really, like, I had my own company, and that's when I really learned about myself in terms of running a business and running my own show. And
awesome.
And then that was the kind of transition into real estate, blah, blah, blah. And I won't get into my own story, but like,
I am kind of curious, because that's a pretty large chasm from photography to real estate.
Yeah, totally.
But that's interesting.
It wasn't commercial real estate. It was single family, easy barrier of entry, flipping houses. And I never wholesaled, but I could have wholesaled. And then that eventually, it took a long time, but that eventually transitioned into the commercial vision. And so, for me, it was actually quite different than you, in that I kind of found the next step one step at a time. But I was highly tapped into the entrepreneurial side of me and the business owner side of me. I just didn't know exactly where it was headed. And I certainly didn't have multifamily on the radar. So, at certain points. So, before a certain point anyway. But yeah, I mean, it was a big chasm. Like, photography is a grind, man. Like, it's all on you, and you're editing and shooting and consulting and all that stuff. And, I just knew that it wasn't going to get me to the lifestyle that I wanted, which was time freedom, money freedom, et cetera. So, and as luck had it, I had a buddy that was in a small, basically very basic investor course, that this local guru was putting on. And I joined that and, learned how to do the basics and did it. So, but back to Michael. So okay. So let's talk about kind of where you are now. What's the construction company doing right now? What kind of projects? How active are you with it?
I'm the managing partner. I mean, I'm actually, every single day, 5 days a week. I wish I could say 5 days a week, whatever it takes is really what it is.
Right. Yep.
And we've grown tremendously. So we started out, 2019, June, 2019, our first year I sold, I think it was something like $1.6 million in construction. I'm a little jaded with numbers. I recognize that, a lot of businesses would love to do that in their first 6 months.
Yeah.
But we've grown just tremendously. So first 6 months, 1.6 million. Year 2 was a little over or a little under 6 million. Year 3 was substantial. Year 3, I think we were north of 18 million.
Wow.
And now even passing that. And honestly, the size of project is less important to us than it is the service to the client. I mean, we execute $300 projects all the time.
Wow. Okay.
I find it absolutely hysterical when other clients call me up and they're like, "Hey, my GC won't do this for me. It's not big enough." And it's like a $20,000 project. And I'm like, "Well, I'll do it. Let's do it."
Right. Sure.
It doesn't, but I think it's also because we're wired towards service. And so it is chaotic at times, especially when you're doing a bunch of small projects, much like everyone else, they want to do the bigger deals. And we have those. We have the $1 million projects, the $2 million projects, $6 million projects. But I would say our bread and butter that has won us over time and time again with clients has been, "Hey, what do you need?" "Hey, Mike, I need someone to do 15 make readies because my make ready guy is behind schedule. And if I don't get these things back on the market, I'm going to lose X amount of money." "Hey, how many units? Where are they at?" And then the other thing is from a scalability perspective, we scaled pretty quick from a team perspective. So, we're upwards now of 30 employees. We will travel pretty much anywhere. So we've executed projects in Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida.
That whole Southeast, you're killing it.
Yeah, pretty much South and Arizona. So
that's the outlier Sun Belt. There. Yeah. So those are the hot areas for multifamily. So yeah.
It's the primary market, secondary and tertiary market for sure. And really, I would say our calling card has been two things. Mine was I got really good at waterproofing building envelopes. So that was something that I studied really, really hard. And it comes back down to, obviously having a passion for something. I love solving problems. It's kind of how my brain is oriented. I'm very solution oriented. And so for me, waterproofing is, hey, this water is getting in this building somehow, right? Because I'm dealing with a lot more of existing structures on the renovation side. And so the water is getting in the building somehow. And so we have to prevent that from happening. And so that became initially our calling card of balcony rebuilds and water and window flashings, things of that nature, which has given us a great reputation of solving problems that maybe have been lingering for 6 years, 7 years, been touched by 4, 5, 6 GCs, and no one's really fixed it. So that became a calling card for us. And then the next thing that I would say became a calling card for us is really the due diligence side. So once people understood that we not only could execute construction, execute it well, the next piece was, could we help them forecast? And once we started to travel, and it comes down to relationships, but like for a bunch of our clients that we have really good relationships with, we don't charge. I'll travel to Tennessee. We'll travel to South Carolina. We'll travel to Arkansas. We'll send a team up there. We'll go walk the buildings with you, spot out the things that we think are a problem. And we don't charge for that service. All that we ask for is on the back end, hey, give us an opportunity to win the work if you end up winning the building, right? So it's not a guarantee that they're going to win the deal. And I think that's where we end up being like an equal investor in it, where, hey, you're investing your time, we're investing our time, we're in this thing together. Yeah. I want you to win it, and we're going to give you all the data and information to win it. Hopefully give you that competitive edge. And then the flip side is, in return on those projects that you win, we get an opportunity to execute that construction.
Nice.
And so that's kind of where we're at right now. Just crushing it. And absolutely, I love the team that's been developed here, from a production standpoint, sales, estimating, our office staff. I mean, just a great core group of people with tons of experience. We've got guys that have been in the construction industry for 40 years. We have guys in the construction industry for 10 years. And then we have newer people that are learning. So, developing people ground up as well. So that's kind of the snapshot of T-Rock in 2022.
Got it. That's awesome. Powerful stuff. Sounds like you guys are are rolling, and that's awesome. And you're doing it the right way for the right reasons as well. Have you ever done any work in Oklahoma City?
We've bid out a couple of projects in Oklahoma, but we haven't executed any yet. We have a bunch of bids out right now. I would imagine within the next 12 months, pretty organically, we will be in the Oklahoma market.
I ask because that we own properties there, and this is a piece. Construction management, for listeners, is a piece it's huge. It's extremely important to your business plan and implementation. And if you get it right, if you pick the right company to do it, man, you're going to shine. And if conversely, if you pick somebody that, just whatever in whatever way doesn't perform, isn't committed, et cetera, isn't doing it for the right reasons, dude, it's miserable. And I know I'm speaking from experience. We had to fire a construction manager, and it hurt. It didn't hurt to fire. It hurt what hurt was the outcome of hiring them. And so, if you can't turn units in time, and if you can't turn them well, if you come in over budget and crush your CapEx budget, like all that stuff really hurts a project and hurts your metrics and your returns. So getting this piece right is huge. So we'll go over this at the end again, Michael, but I'll just ask now for listeners that may need somebody like you or want to talk to somebody like you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah. So there's our office phone line. So it's 214-548-4733. From a portfolio perspective, you can find us on Instagram. We do a great job of documenting the projects that we've executed. So it's TRock_contracting. You can always get in touch with me directly as well, mgentile@trockcontracting.com. And, from there, there's obviously a great team of people here that can service you guys, service pretty much anyone in any market. I would say one of our best things is that if we can't, so it's once again, going back to being able to say no. And part of it is out of respect for the person that's calling. If I don't have the ability to execute a project in that market, I'm very quick to say, hey, we're not equipped to, but here's a couple of people that I trust. I think that's been also a really great reason why people like to work with us is I don't mind saying, hey, here's a plumber. Hey, you don't need me on this. You know what I mean? Like you're going to get a markup on top of me. I'm not a licensed plumber. You need a plumber. Yeah. Now, some people choose to have me in the middle because they know that we're going to handle the work and they don't have the time or the bandwidth to be able to manage that project. But other companies, they do. And so it just depends on where you're at in the marketplace. I would say the biggest thing, whether it's us or anyone else, number one, make sure they have a portfolio. Number two, make sure they have references. And number three, make sure that they tell you about at least two of the projects that they failed on.
Oh, interesting. That's great. That's a great one.
So if they haven't fixed it, like I'll be very honest. We did a project in Fort Worth, which is in our backyard, and we took on a project for a retention pond. And I ended up completing the project, not profitable from us as a company, but and the client was involved in it. But for us, we use a subcontractor. It's no different than using a general contractor, right? So if the general contractor has to get fired, then that's a problem for you guys. It costs everybody money. It's the same thing when you have to step in and help out a subcontractor who maybe underbid a project. And therefore, so we were between a crossroads, right? I could have went to the client and said, hey, I'm sorry, I can't execute this project. And, for the budget that you gave me, and I need to submit a change order for $80,000.
Yeah.
Probably would have ruffled a lot of feathers.
Yeah.
And then there's conversely the other side, which is what we did, which was, hey, I told you that was the price. Here's what we're up against. I need a little bit more time, but I'm going to execute the project on budget. Yeah. And so we did that. And we ended up being a pretty big hit for us, but we gained so much from that, from the client perspective of being a company of their word. So if somebody if everything is just peaches and roses, then chances are they're probably holding back on something. The one thing I always tell our references is, hey, don't just tell them about how great I am. Tell them about how I fix the things that we don't do great.
Yeah.
And so that's been another reason why we only have one client in 3 years that we have not done repeat business with. And it's because we choose not to work with them.
Yeah.
Every other client we've done 2, 3, 4. We have some clients I've executed, let me see here, 194 projects for one client.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's amazing.
And we have multiple like that where, 194, 183. And so it's the consistency of those. Like, why is somebody using you that often? If they don't have that, it could be that they're brand new, right? And you're going to be the one that's going to figure out if they're good or not. Or it could be that maybe people aren't trusting them on consecutive projects. So that's kind of a food for thought there.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. In the interest of time, I want to talk about multifamily and specifically you getting into multifamily and getting your first deal done. So let's just start off with what are you trying to get done right now? We talked offline about a deal that you're working on. And what do you need that you don't have right now to get that deal done?
So right now, that one was a deal. Well, I'll start off with this. So I started off wanting to do what you did, which was residential, just rental units, single family rentals.
Okay. Yeah.
I always knew, I saw a lot of the people in my family or people that I knew that had, retired and had money to retire well, all owned some sort of real estate. And so I knew in my mind that whatever I did, I wanted to invest in real estate. It wasn't until I got into the multifamily industry where I started to really understand the compound interest of multiple doors, right? Yeah. Learning from, watching guys like yourself or Ellis Hammond, who owns Symphony Capital, or what's the,
do you know Michael
Grant
Becker
Cardone,
out of Dallas?
Grant Cardone's everywhere.
Yeah. Grant. Yep. So, Uncle G.
Yep. So Robert Martinez. So watching these guys on Instagram and really understanding like, hey, you can go that route of single family and do it one at a time, and you can still make a good life, or you can try and go the multifamily route. The route with multifamily that I couldn't really wrap my head around was, you need a lot of cash. It's not like buying a $300,000 house.
Yeah.
You're buying a $40 million asset or something like that. And you need real capital. So with that deal specifically, that one was actually one that I went to a mastermind group because I was really trying to get involved and I needed to know the players in this industry. And I needed to understand for myself what I was getting into, because although I understood the construction piece of it, I still didn't understand like, hey, why is a 3 cap not good? Or, what's the caps or the magic formula? Like, I needed to understand that, because the last thing you want to do is get into something just completely blind, because that's typically how you end up losing money and acquiring a bad deal. And everything I always ever heard was the money's made on the buy. Yep. It's not made on the sale. If you buy bad, you buy bad. And so with this first deal, it was actually something where went to this mastermind group, met Ellis, and he's pursuing just buying properties. And so we did a bunch of due diligence walks for him. And now we're at a stage where, they're looking at closing in a deal here locally in Dallas, and us participating in that deal. For me, I'm okay with, once again, I'm okay with taking a step back, being a part of it less, maybe not making what other people are going to make, but I get to learn the knowledge that I know I'm going to receive through this potential deal. I know will pay off in dividends over the next, 6 months. So I think the area that they're in right now is there's about a $5 million raise. And so it's a matter of how much of that my business partner and I can contribute. And then, that's the big crux there is, and then obviously the construction piece of it, which we have pretty much underway.
You got that taken care of. Yeah. Okay. So, and you guys are working on it. First of all, I just want to point out you joined a mastermind. That's huge. Like, all listeners should be in the right rooms with the right people. That's where you found your partner. Look, that's a huge piece of your business. And that's where stuff happens, is in those rooms. So, so good job getting in that. I don't want to spend any more time on that, but So give me a short kind of thumbnail on this deal that you're working on, and it's a $5 million raise. Well, first of all, how are you guys tackling the raise? What are you doing for that?
So that for us is going to be, we have some cash, and obviously T-Rock's done pretty well. Yep. The raise is much more than that from their side. So I think they needed to raise initially something like 19 million. There's about 5 left over, which is where we're coming into play of, how much can we put in of cash from ourselves to be an LP on the deal. Mm-hmm. And then, how much maybe for some of our friends and family can we raise in that regard. So for me, I'm going into my network of people that I know that have the money to invest. Obviously your network is your net worth, right? Yep. So it's bringing the people to the deal that I know, number one, can handle it. They're not, if I ask them for, $500,000, it's not like their last pennies, and they're not going to be like, oh my God, hey, every single day, how's this going?
Right.
So it's understanding a little bit about where people are at, and then just really tapping into our network to figure out, if we're going to do it ourselves. Fortunate for me, my business partner has been very successful. He's owned a number of businesses. He actually previously owned, once again, it is connecting with the right people. So he owned previously 1,000 units himself. He's built ground up townhomes in the Utah area. So it's connecting yourself and surrounding yourself with people that understand the functions of the things that you don't understand.
Yeah.
That I would pay for that. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. That's worth every day. It's worth,
it's been,
yeah.
Even my conversation with my partner last night about the offering that we're looking at. And it's just, his knowledge and experience of like, hey, Mike, this looks good. Or, hey, we need to get some clarification on why the cap rate is where it's at right now, and how much the value add is going to increase the deal. And, so there's things that he innately is looking at and has questions around that when I looked at it, I was like, looks good.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. And so, right. Surrounding myself with people that really understand that has been pivotal for sure.
Yeah. All right. So
it is so I know you asked me a question on what is the deal. So it is a 224 unit property. I want to say the sale price is somewhere around $43 million. And I want to say $19 million raise. The benefit there was it is high occupancy. So I want to say it's already at like a 90-something% occupancy. And all of the rents are pretty under market for the surrounding property. So it's got some great value add potential there. And there's some meat on the bone in terms of units that have not been upgraded that can be upgraded.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to throw a few things out at you as just things to consider. Where, given where you are in your progression and what you've got going on, and everything that's on your plate already. So I had a great syndicator on, or actually recorded the episode earlier today, and he's 27. He's got 1,000 doors. He's got a killer team. He's styling. And I asked him, like, it wasn't that long ago that you didn't have any of this and that you were starting, kind of at square one. I said, how would you coach yourself now if you could go back in time to that person and speak to him? And he said, you want to build a capital raising machine. And in other words, you want to have the ability to send out an email to your database of investors and have a webinar and raise, $20 million in that process. And it was incredibly eye-opening to me, because we at Greenlight, we started with deals first, and then we filled in the capital as needed. And we ran up against our limitations, right? Like your friend's family network is going to be good for a deal, maybe 2 deals, and then it's going to be maxed out. And so you need to be developing your retail database, right? Like, your database of investors that you can go to and raise capital from. And there's a lot of steps in doing that, and it's a long game. It takes some time, but essentially you want to have some sort of click magnet online that, some sort of value add, and your shape, like you've got a lot to offer in the way of value add for people with construction management. So you want that in place, an ebook, a brochure, something like that people click on, download, and then you capture their information, their contact info, and then they're in your investor database, and then you start nurturing those relationships and follow up and regular automated emails that are value add. And then you're basically working that investor base. And then eventually, you're raising from them. You start with a smaller raise, you work into larger raises and keep adding. You get referrals from your investors and repeat investors as well. So like from where you're sitting, this business is all about deals and dollars, right? So the biggest checks that you're going to make are going to come from either finding deals or finding dollars. And so like, it sounds to me like your partner is pretty robust in terms of his ability to raise capital and find deals. So he's kind of got both going on. And I think the question for you is, which of those two things do you put your primary focus on? And, to me, like you're in a unique position to find deals actually, because you're dealing with owners all the time. And a lot of these owners have multiple properties that they're trading out of and those sorts of things. You also deal with property managers who know of owners that might want to sell. They know distressed properties, that sort of thing. And so I would just recommend, in your case, kind of taking a step back and looking at those two items and looking as basically the whole business. And of course, there's asset management after you buy, but as far as the acquisitions process goes, it's those deals and those dollars. And I would like maybe not 100% focus on one of the two, but like primarily focus on one of the two, right? So, and a lot of that's going to come down to what value your partner already offers. If you've got plenty of deal flow from him and they're good deals and everything else, and you can partner with him on them, then you kind of got deal flow taken care of, right? But at the same time, I think you're uniquely positioned to go after finding new deals. And then the capital raising side is huge. It's just it's every bit as big as finding the deals and getting them done, getting them under contract, if not bigger. Like it's just a massive piece. And this guy's advice this morning kind of recontextualized my thinking a little bit in terms of what we're doing at Greenlight. And here we are trying to get deals done, and we're kind of piecing capital together, some larger institutions, that sort of thing. And we don't really have our game as well dialed in as I'd like. And so, I'm kind of coaching myself here too, but, in sharing that, those two lanes, if you will, what's your response? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think there's two things. So you're absolutely right. I've actually been in a position to where, obviously I have my business partner, Aaron, and then I have people that I've met and trust in the industry like Ellis. And so there is a unique ability for myself and my team to find out about properties that are going to sell most likely ahead of time. Because a lot of times we'll get the phone call of, hey, we're thinking about putting this on the market. We need to do some construction projects. So there is some great inside information there, which has helped other people get the jump. And I'm happy to share that information. I think for me, thinking about what you said from a capital perspective, I've been fortunate to know a lot of people with capital, not just friends and family, but also just the network in general of myself, my business partner, and then some of the new people that I've connected with. But I think the deal is probably where I need to focus on most. Okay. Is finding more of those deals, more of those opportunities, because it is a competitive market, especially in the DFW marketplace. Like, I've found different deals, but there's only been None of the ones that I brought to the table have come to fruition. Somebody else bought them, bigger companies, bigger offerings. And so there's always two ways. You can better your offer, or you can bid more frequently. Mm-hmm. And so that's been probably something I need to focus on more is, all right, now that T-Rock is getting to a place where, not to say it's running itself, but there's checks and balances in place, and my time is freeing up a little bit. Maybe I can devote some of that time to maybe even land deals, finding land deals where we can develop ground up and do a ground up construction deal for multifamily. So there's definitely pieces inside there that I think I can take from what you just said and probably put more of my focus on finding the deals or the land or something of that nature.
Yeah, that feels good to me too, just based on what you've said and what you've shared. Like, you really seem uniquely positioned to find great deals, and that's where it starts. And like you said, you make money on the buy. So if you can find great opportunities for deals, and you've kind of, you and your partner have created a very steady, nice deal flow coming in, where you have lots of options and you're cherry picking the best ones. That to me feels really good for you guys. And maybe, the capital raising thing, I'd maybe just get with your partner and kind of go like, I'm all in on this capital raising piece. And I think maybe the value that I can really bring is on the deal side, but how are we going to attack this capital raising piece together? And you're looking to just leverage that part of the business, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, dude, that's great stuff. And unfortunately, I hate this, dude. I don't know how this happened, but we're out of time, up against the top of the hour here, and I got to do another episode. But I guess in summary, I would just say, we didn't get to do quite as much like in the mastermind thing as I was hoping, but I think there's been some amazing takeaways out of this, and you're a tremendous resource, if nothing else, for a lot of our listeners out there. What is the best way to reach you? I know we mentioned it earlier, but just go through it again. What's the best way for people to reach Michael Gentile?
Yeah. So best way to reach Michael Gentile and T-Rock Contracting is mgentile@trockcontracting.com. Okay. You can call me directly, 469-993-4011. And then you can always connect with us on Instagram, T-Rock_contracting. We're always here to be a resource. Like I said, because we're based around service, we do love speaking with people and offering that advice. Not everything needs to equal dollars and cents. Right. We firmly believe that if we add the value, then eventually we'll do something together. Eventually there'll be some sort of mutual beneficial, nature to our relationship. Yep. But on the first end of it, it could be that we're just, we're a good resource. Hey, how would you execute this? Hey, what do you think about this pricing? Whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think that's great. So listeners, consider Michael and T-Rock a resource for you. They work in a very broad, wide, set of markets. So maybe you're working with a construction manager, or maybe you got a bid on a deal. And like Michael said, maybe you reach out to him, just give him a call or an email and say, I'm working on this project. Here's what I got. How does this bid sound to you? Or how does this plan sound to you? And maybe you have them go out and bid a project for you. And, start that relationship with, these are primary power team members that we're talking about here that are going to drive your business and move it to the next level. And Michael obviously has a ton of experience in this space. And so I highly, highly recommend that you use him as a resource, reach out to him, network with him, and, get to know him so that when time comes to have him contribute to your business in some way, that you guys have a relationship in place and you're good to go. So, dude, this has been awesome. I really appreciate everything you brought to the show. And, like I said, I can't believe time's gone by this fast, because it feels like we got a lot of other stuff we could talk about. Maybe we'll have you back on the show soon. Let's do this. It sincerely. Let's do this. Let's have you get that first deal done, and let's have you back on the show after that. And that's going to give us a whole nother set of things to talk about, because you'll have that experience under your belt, and you'll have a clearer idea of like all the pieces that you have in place and your role and responsibility inside your partnership and everything else. So we'll kind of do a little series here with a before and after series, if you will. Michael, again, thank you so much for the show, everything you brought to the show, sharing your story and being a resource for me and my listeners. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much, Tate. I appreciate it as well. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to share a quick snippet about an organization that we've actually been donating to and supporting. Sure. If it's okay with you.
You go for it.
My family had an unfortunate incident and honestly a miracle. In the same time, my oldest daughter almost drowned about a month ago and in our pool at our house, which was crazy. And she's perfectly fine. But in the heels of that happening, there's been an organization called Live Like Jake. And it was started by a husband and wife who were not as fortunate as us, and they lost their son. And I just wanted to realize, a lot of people don't realize this, but the number one cause of death for infants or children 1 to 4 is actually drowning.
Wow.
And so they're an organization that actually helps underprivileged families with sponsorship for infant self-rescue programs, as well as people like myself who had a near drowning experience. And they actually sponsored my family. And we've been just so blessed and thankful for it. And so we actually, as a company, decided to donate $5,000 to their organization to train more instructors. So
tremendous.
I just want to get some support to them and help them out as well.
That's tremendous. Awesome. Thank you a ton for that. And listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of the Apartment Gurus podcast. Totally appreciate you guys. I don't really say that a whole lot, but you guys make this worth doing and make it very meaningful to me. And I got to tell you, this is my baby, this podcast. I absolutely love doing it. I have a high level of passion for it, and I really try to make it, kind of a cutting edge resource for you guys and something that really moves the needle in your business. So I love hearing from you guys. We love the rating and reviews, but even more so, we love when you reach out, personally. You can do that at investwithgreenlight.com. And, so thanks again, listeners. Thanks again, Michael. And, we're doing 2 of these a week right now. So we'll see you in a few days on the next episode of the Apartment Gurus. Take care, everybody.
This has been the Apartment Gurus with Tate Siemer. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. To contact Tate, go to www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. He loves to hear from you and thanks you for being a valued listener. Just a reminder that you are the guru. See you on the next episode of the Apartment Gurus.